Yo, what's up guys? So finally getting around to that hip mobility video that you've all been asking for. We're gonna start with this 90-90 drill. Now the reason we're starting here is whenever you have any sort of mobility issue, similar to anything else athletic, you wanna start proximal to distal. So what that means is start towards the center of your body and work your way out. So if I got shoulder, elbow, and hand issues, I'm gonna start the shoulder. If I got any lower body issues, I'm gonna start the hips, specifically rotation of the hip. Okay, that's what this 90-90 position does. So I'm sure you've all seen this before. You got 90-degree angle the back leg, 90-degree angle with the front leg, sure. And I'm sure you've seen people do this, where they rotate around, okay, back and forth. Ow, I just squatted, so kind of beat up here. Anyways, so what you're gonna do is we're gonna separate external rotation and internal rotation. So on my lead leg right now, I'm gonna stretch external rotation, which is taking this hip, this femur, and externally rotating it. So I'm gonna stretch down, I'm gonna find a stretch, okay? For me, getting my chest closer to my shin, like this, doesn't really add much because it's coming out of flexion out of my spine. Gonna keep the spine neutral, push forward, feel a stretch here. I'm gonna hold this for 2 minutes. Okay, why 2 minutes? Because yes, 12 seconds you can get some benefit, 30 seconds you get more, but 2 minutes you really start to get more of the benefits out of the stretch. We won't get into it too much. Real quick, do this after your lift. This is not something to do as a warm up. I've already lifted before this. So stretching external rotation, I'm gonna hold for 2 minutes. Let's say 2 minutes is done. Next, I'm going to take this front ankle and front knee and I'm going to press it into the ground. I'm going to try to dent the floor. I'm going to start out slow. I'm going to push down at 10%, build up to 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. Now from here, I'm going to slowly push into the ground as hard as I can without pain. All right. If you can get up to 100%, great. If you can get up to a 6 out of 10, then stop there. Don't want pain here. I'm going to press down as much as I can for anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds. Now, how long? It's just like lifting. So if I can get a max press without pain and I can push as absolutely hard as I can, I'm bracing everywhere, then I'm going to go for like 7 to 10 seconds, I'm going to burn out. If I can only go at like a 6 or a 7, I'm going to go for longer, like 30 seconds. Think of it like you were doing like a max squat. If it was your heaviest weight, you're doing it once, short time. If you're doing half your weight, you're going to do a lot of reps, a long time. So I'm going to press down, build up to as much as I can, hold that for let's say 10 seconds, and ease off. Okay, so now that we eased off, I'm going to go into what that just did. So we spent the 2 minutes passively stretching or going into our passive range of motion as far as we can go without muscle contraction. Then what I did was, now that that muscle is stretched as far as it can, these the internal rotators are getting stretched in the external rotation. Now that I've stretched them as far as I can, we contract at terminal extension. So getting used to, think of it like a hamstring stretch. I was stretched as far as I can. Now I'm going to contract in this lengthened position by pressing into the ground. So right here we just contracted. So now we got our brain used to contracting at the longer length. And then now what we're going to do is, so we have half here being stretched and contracting at its max length. And now the internal side of my hip, all this tissue in here, we need to get that used to contracting at its shortest length. So everything, my hip flexor, for example, is very bunched up. We have to get that used to contracting short. So what I'm gonna do next is take this ankle and knee, and I'm gonna try to pull it up off the ground. Now, I won't be able to get off the ground because I'm already at my max passive range of motion. So there's no way because your active range of motion, what I can actually control, is always less than your passive range of motion. Because I'm past active and into passive range right now, I won't be able to control it. So if you find yourself being, back up, but if you're able to do this and get off the ground just a little bit, that suggests that you're actually not fully stretched. So anyways, stretch for 2 minutes, press into the ground. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna press in the opposite direction. I'm gonna try to take this ankle, knee, pick it up, pull it up as hard as I can, go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. Once I get there, work up again to as much as you can without any pain or issue. You might cramp while doing this, It's not due to some sort of electrolyte imbalance or anything. It's because your brain is not used to contracting the muscle in such a shortened position. So what happens is it gets confused and it kind of spazzes, and that's where the cramp comes. So if that happens, it's safe, it's normal, and it will kind of suck. So pick up as hard as I can, 10 seconds, okay, that goes through. Then I'm gonna relax. So what I just did before we continue is stretch the muscle in the passive, got everything to relax. Your brain, your Golgi tendon organ relaxed and said, okay, we can let yourself go into further range of motion. I'm okay with that. Then we learn to contract the lengthened muscle at max length. Then we contract it at the shortest length on the interior or the closed side here. And then now what we're gonna do is our brain said, okay, I'm comfortable where we are. It's gonna let off the brakes a little bit, not inhibit so much. And now I'm gonna be able to stretch a little further than I could before. I'm gonna hold that for about a minute up to 2 minutes, sure. Then what I'm gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing on the back leg. So my back leg is getting stretched into internal rotation. So even though I'm going this way, my femur relative to my body is turning internally. So press this way, I can feel a stretch. My internal rotation is not good, so I feel a stretch already. Right here, it might feel like your bones trying to like snap. That's, I want to say okay, but that's typical for how it feels. Press this way, and then hold that for 2 minutes. When that 2 minutes is done, I'm going to take ankle and knee, press it into the ground. So all that lengthened tissue on underside right here that's getting lengthened, I'm gonna contract that at max length, or max stretch, you want to think of it. So pressing down, I'm gonna push into the ground, build up to slowly to 50%, then progress from there as you're comfortable. Hold that for 10 seconds. Then I'm gonna relax. Then I'm gonna try to take this ankle and knee, pick it up off the ground. Now again, if I'm able to do it, and I can actually, let's say if I cheat, if I get that ankle off the ground, that means I'm not stretched enough. So I'm right here, I'm gonna try to pull the ankle off the ground as hard as I can. You're much more likely to cramp on this one, at least I am. Work up as hard as you can for about 10 seconds or longer if you can only handle a 6 out of 10, let's say, without cramping. Hold up, then I'll relax, and you'll notice you'll be able to stretch a little further. Hold that for a minute. Okay, then what we would do is transition to the other side. So I stretched external rotation on the front leg. I stretched internal rotation on the back leg. Now I'm gonna take this knee, I'm gonna break it off the ground, and it'll kind of like pull the chain or drive the, however you want to think of it. It's going to control my back leg. That sounds confusing. Let me just show you. So rather than pick up the back leg and just switch over at once, you're going to start with just the front leg or the back knee, pull it up, and eventually this back leg is going to get pulled along for the ride. That's how you want to do it. So I'm not lifting this up off the ground. The tension in my body is basically is at its max stretch, and it's got to come along. So right here, keep pulling, pull, and down. You have to readjust yourself slightly. I'll center myself on the camera. So right here. So now this side's an external rotation. This side is external rotation. This side is an internal rotation. We do the same thing. 2 minutes, stretch. 10 seconds, press into the ground. Contract that lengthened position. Then the internal side, or the shortened position, is going to get contracted. So I'm going to try to pick this up off the ground. Then I'll go to this one. 2 minute stretch. Press on the ground for 10 seconds, or as hard as I can. Then try to pick up as hard as I can. Then stretch for another minute. And then, now that we're done, so what we just did, just to recap, is we took the tissue, we stretched it. And when I say tissue, it's the muscle, the tendon, joint capsule, perhaps some of the ligaments, and so forth. So we took everything and we stretched it in a passive range. So we got, over those 2 minutes, our brain relaxed. It's not so much that our muscle just got longer in those last 2 minutes, it's more so that our nervous system took off the brakes. Your body's very good at knowing when it's getting to that end range and it could potentially hurt itself. Think of like, if you're doing a split, your brain's like, oh, I don't like that. So it puts on the brakes and it won't physically let your muscle lengthen more. So we get that to relax over the 2 minutes. Then in that lengthened state, so the muscle's stretched, we're going to contract in the lengthened state. Then the opposite end, the muscle that's at its shortest position. So think of like bicep. Right now I'm stretching my tricep. My bicep is bent as it is. If I learn to contract my bicep hard in that shortened position, it helps your active range of motion because now your brain is used to controlling itself in that extreme joint angle. So we do there, then we stretch a little further. All that is mainly a trick to get your nervous system to take off the brakes on your muscles. So now what you're gonna do is we're gonna have to get ourselves to, we've just opened up some new range of motion, now you have to learn to control it, and that's the next part. Okay, so now you have to learn to control the new range of motion we just opened up a little bit. So, you're gonna wanna hold on to something. So, I got my buddy here. So, you can just use a pole, but this is cooler. So, hold my hand here for stabilization. Pick up your knee. Give me some room here. Pick up your knee a little bit. I'm gonna externally rotate. So, externally rotate as hard as I can. I'm gonna pick up as far as I can go. Okay, now keep in mind I'm keeping everything stable, so my upper body's not moving much. Now, I like to give a fist here to kind of balance. Externally rotating as far as I can, flexing as hard as I can. I'm gonna slowly open the knee out without turning my pelvis. So pelvis stays pointing towards you. Up, out as far as I can. I get to about here. Then I'm going to escape that by internally rotating. So, internally rotating as hard as I can. And I'm slowly going to extend and abduct and internally rotate as hard as I can. Until about here. Watch that, sometimes you want to do this, so avoid that. So, out, turning in. Back. Next, I'm going to abduct the leg. Knee goes out as far as it can. I can get to about here. Then you're going to externally rotate and flex up as far as I can. Get to about there. Coming over, keep externally rotating and back down. You do the same other side too. So that allows your brain to control the new range of motion. If you try to do that before you do all these stretches, you may feel, however it is you feel at baseline. After you do this, you'll notice that your joints move much better afterwards. That's a very long video, but I feel like if you don't understand how it is that, or why and how we're doing something, then you're less likely to do it, at least I am. So I might give a shorter video at some point, just do this, but not yet. Catch you later.